As I appear dedicated to make some kind of closure and summarize in one presentation this cycle of my latest way of communicating to the planet, I would like to point out the very obvious fact being that we do not have on the planet present, neither on the planetary level, neither on the national level, sentiment of managing a house. Rather, we have a sentiment of managing personal identity, and then we have some kind of competition going on as who is the best cultural identity, and everything ends up very much as in the story of Cinderella, and with the stepmother asking the mirror who is the most beautiful woman in the world. That is exactly where building nations on the planet has ended as we speak. Believe it or not, that is exactly where we are today, and why it is like that. It is because all of the older societies have found themselves producing marketable items that then they go on to call human as well. I don't know how they have been thinking to differentiate themselves from that human, from the new human they are selling on the market under the national flag. It looks to me more like they are already unrolling themselves. I am setting themselves out. If I'm going to think that would be the way how we perceive making our kids as next generation of improvement from our own possessions. Being a woman, in my case, I stuck very much on the need to make the house first, and then certainly very much as a matter of providing some secure future for my kids. I needed to provide the playground, cultural, obviously, civilizational corridors for them as well. And you can do that only by building proper house. And when you deliver yourself, when you find yourself on the level of thinking, building the house, then you find yourself on the level thinking of building a house. This has been said, of course, in the context of comprehension of my place in certain inherited circumstances, considering the way how I employ myself versus the environment, starting to do walking as Alice in a Wonderland, and discovering the world into shadows, yet declaring the golden stamps of humanity, and knowing my approach, knowing my capacity, and in that context attempting to provide the answer. That is already finding myself in certain kind of mathematical, philosophical field, where my response was starting that scope of work and approach, noticing wrong build of societies, and finding myself in instant response of rebuilding a society in the same time, not a Cinderella protocol. How far a nation can afford to be lost in a building one Cinderella protocol rather than building a nation? We talk about someone being serious here. We are not joking about upholding a nation. And then you have some territories that are centrally positioned on the planet that are somehow obliged within the God-given geographical position to respond, to be present, and to be some kind of policemen even, to be coordinators of the entire geographic basin that is surrounding them, and they end up also competing on a Cinderella protocol. That is ludicrous. That is lack of orientation, lack of self-perception in terms of realm itself, lack of noticing your place in the realm either as a historic or as a geographic component, lack of being responsible for existing on certain territories, accepting to play a sleeping beauty or a hello, accepting to play a marionette. That is not a question of one way or another. We don't have here a question of making a choice. You don't have a choice existing on certain territory. You have to exist on that territory. That is the only choice you have. And then, of course, that is bringing immediately on the table the other subject here, and that is that we all have to notice how different is the way how women think about matters and how many think that men still is to be ahead of the society. Notice now what a woman needs to think during her active life when she gets married and makes her own house. She needs to think of supplies, maintaining, cleaning, preparing food, looking after kids, assisting them in their education, her own progress, not forgetting about husband, social network. This is a very complex, multi-leveled functioning to what woman mind responds automatically. What man does, I'm talking specific terms as it is managing the house, man ends up relying on that order and expecting that order to be there. It would be not any different on the society levels. It would not be, because that is the structure of the man mind, and that is exactly where in 2 millenniums of human history under the flag of fraternity we ended exactly on that position of not noticing things and allowing things to slip under the carpet. Today we have a world where men indulge themselves and noticing, and nothing else really exists in this world. So you want to finger point at someone being responsible? I'm speaking for 15 years already, open ground from day one, recognizing problem number one being fraternity society. Problem number one being the fact that with dismiss of ancient Macedonia, woman has been taken away from the political stage, and fraternity within the concept of religion takes over. I have recognized that being critical momentum from where it started, the 2 millenniums adventure of bringing our societies today on position where they are now. You want to continue to finger point who is responsible, or we are going to talk about serious approaches and how we are going to deal with this situation, starting from where we are as a planet right now. I'm going to repeat, no one can drop from perspective that we are together on one vessel. Macedonian expression meaning happy, I would assume would be the beautiful and gifted or dedicated one as well. Point being yet, this planet still does not deliver that level of thinking, that level of perception, of mental orientation that we are all together on one satellite called Earth, and notice the name of it as well. Why is that important? Because we talk about functioning of the system here. That is why it is important, because nothing starts from you being centerpiece. The centerpiece here is the Earth as a system and functioning of actual planet, where you then notice where would be your position, how you can contribute in the given context. Have you explained to yourself? Have you clarified what is the given context? Have you agreed here what is the context upon which we today restart this system, reboot the system? I'm not going to use expression reboot, I'm just going to notice it, however. I'm going to call it restarting the system. It has to be perfectly clear that we talk about recognizing that this is a planet, this is a realm that will need to be managed as a realm, as a society, as a house. I would go with spacecraft because you don't have some same component, because you need to pay attention to the functioning itself. Functioning is critical point where you have different nations, different territories, each of these different territories and different nations function on certain parameters that will need to be established on planetary levels. That only can be established on planetary levels, but also is very important that each of the territories develop such comprehensive perception of their existence on a certain geographic point as what is their critical historic and space related role to play on a given corridors, where nothing here is being in a candy store. We all live in a system on which we all depend, and it would be expected responsibility level awakened, sense of duty awakened, instead how to only indulge yourself in something. That is profoundly different approach. That is what we need to accomplish here today. Also, when we come to building, when it comes to building a nation, it is not as I am the best in the world, or I'm the best stepmother, or I'm the best mother in the world. It is about building a nation to be strong enough and also very much to respond in the surroundings in which the nation exists as a functioning element, not as a standalone Cinderella element, but as a functioning component. For example, Macedonia being surrounded with all of the territories of various cultural diversities and identities, including her own rather more complex identity, cannot afford to play exactly one face value approach, as that would be one tribe eventually, but not even one state, let's say empire, once upon a time, still meaning having relevant bloodlines that have been historically existing on the territories and assuring some kind of coordination of functioning of the territories within their geographic deploy, with a perspective of what would be needed to be improved. But you cannot function as a system if you don't notice the performance of the individuals in the society and support them in accordance of how they perform in this society. Ready to go out there and downgrade them upon that performance, that is absolutely unacceptable. Because when such territories do not function, how they would need naturally, you damage the most natural equilibrium in the systems. Instead, people for some time took upon themselves indulgence to play chess with the territories. No one wins here, no Russians, no Americans, no Africans. This is the reason why today I'm bringing here the question of functioning of the realm as a critical and important question of the present times. And I would like to be explained to me the movie Odyssey 2001 being about one man allegedly coming from the universe to start the human race, self-regenerating itself from a baby to old man, while there is only one big rectangle black box in the room, supposing to be the missing woman, the missing subject. That will need to be explained. We also have to have reference to monarchy there, therefore to human history. I'm going to ask religion also to explain that movie, Vatican to explain it, Democratic Party of America will need to explain that movie, and everyone in similar category. We certainly need to understand this decision of 2 millenniums of fraternity society to take over the world from a woman. This planet does not belong to a man only, it belongs to man and a woman, or should I say to a woman and a man and kids, of course. Although I do not like when people start empowering kids, preventing them to be kids. So kids are not legal subjects, and in this constitutional context, we would be saying woman and man are the one to discuss in equal manner whatever are the issues about managing this planet. I don't like that New World territories have taken for themselves the right to play the only children of the present times, to continue to hold themselves indulged and spoiled and somehow prioritized, and have thrown upon us to play the parents, which would explain why many of us get activated at older stage as we are not supposed to be young. Can you comprehend how that would look from my perspective? Now that is certainly another explanation of the movie Sleeping Beauty, as that is exactly how my life passed by. I have been incubated my entire life so someone can start using me from age of 60 where I can be called a parent and they can go away with being kids. Now that is symptomatic. In most of the territories of the planet, kids are being employed to labor from earlier of the ages. Harassment is not their subject, but to stay alive or not. Nothing of that can be tolerated. We live in conditions of enormous humanitarian violations on this planet. Yet some of you are still using high-level manipulative political approaches to go away with continuing to hold the headquarters of the civilization of the planet, for what will need to be charged probably both of your parents on your own geographic territories as not functioning properly in a given geographic territory. Over 5 generations of mixed bloodlines, you reach different identity. Being typical New World identity, Western identity, where after fifth generation, technically, you get different identity totally, and it cannot be referred anymore as to matrix territory. Also, another momentum here will need to be noticed. Some old imperial practices, most probably, employed to deliberately toughen up or challenge young souls in order to create some kind of renegades from them that would be careless and scrupulous as a way of maintaining these imperial dominant stages. I am here arguing with my work that we need to recalibrate civilization more often, that we have to have a regular attendance here, and a woman will need to be much more present in the way how we see that in Star Trek, for example, if I exclude the costumes given to a woman, sometimes looking more as of a cabaret. That is laughable. It is also irritating that Western territories continue to play a chauvinistic approach when in question other cultures, but then we are Empire Earth. No, Empire Earth has not happened yet. I will conclude here, as Western perception of the world cannot be accepted as planetary perspective. We are over annoyed of the very obsolete cultural settings there that the territory itself does not have capacity to deal with. We will leave it there. I do not talk here about taking over. I talk about shifting to planetary levels of established standards for everyone equally. The so-called developed world, as turned to be, is nothing of that developed either. I do not say that on any other territory there is any better answer, Today that better answer is my work, and I am not deploying it as Western approach because it is not Western approach, where I am also blaming them for interfering on our territories, for a longer time amending the more natural development there as well.